Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Brent Gardner is the Vice President of Americans for Prosperity, and he was my dining companion at lunch today when a rumor swept the room that American Pope had been elected, and I looked a little bit aghast because I really didn't think Cardinal Kupich was the guy for the job. But it turned out to be the American who's really a Peruvian American, who's really a Vatican Peruvian American. So, Brent, that's not the fire alarm I thought it was. How about the fire alarm in Ways and Means? What did you find out about the reconciliation bill in the House?
Yeah, no. Well, I think we've still got some pretty significant challenges here, and we've been seeing it today all over social media. We've been having it in conversations with members. It seems too unbelievable to be true, but it seems as though Republicans are on the verge, or at least seriously considering actually raising taxes on some Americans and still preserving some Biden-era Green New Deal policies from the IRA. It's almost beyond belief.
Well, Brent, I began the program with Senator Crapo, who doesn't ever criticize what his House colleagues are up to, but he said he's for pro-growth extension of the Trump tax cuts, making them permanent, and no tax increases. So I think you got a friend in the Senate, at least. Did we get a hard yes that they actually are going to propose that to the House GOP conference? Because that is not going to make it to the floor.
No, I wouldn't think so, Hugh. I mean, what we've been hearing from members today is a lot of frustration on this. And look, this is something that Americans roundly rejected. And that's part of the reason why we have both chambers of Congress, and a President Trump and not a President Harris was a commitment to ultimately extend not some, but all of President Trump's tax cuts. And it seems crazy to think that, Republicans in this era, after running on that, succeeding on that, and then ultimately promising that, would keep that promise. So I'm hopeful that ultimately this is one of those bad ideas late in the game that, ultimately gets rejected, left on the cutting room floor. And then we get back to trying to get the kind of bill that President Trump promised Americans and that Congress promised Americans when they elected them last fall.
One of the things we were talking about at lunch is that you don't introduce big, bad ideas this close to the finish line. It's like a recipe for disaster. Maybe they're just floating a trial balloon, so we're happy with the final result. Is that possible, Brent?
I suppose it's possible, but, bad ideas like this should be left back in the barn. I mean, this is definitely the kind of thing that has got members upset. It's got grassroots upset, and it's got most of us scratching our heads. We know that there are still issues that remain on this bill that need to be addressed, issues that were supposed to be moving us closer to the finish line. This would mark a pretty significant step backwards. It's ideologically different than the way that we've talked about this bill. And to your point, it's not pro-growth. And I know that there's a number of studies that are coming out today that are starting to indicate that, in a big way. So I think from our perspective, there's a good opportunity for folks to use this as a good test case on what trial balloons look like this late in the game and get back on track.
Brent, you and I have been working together for a long time. AFP has been a sponsor of the show for a long time. I think we always agree on everything. We agree that this is a horrible idea. So is there any conservative group anywhere that thinks this is a good idea? Because I'm unaware of them.
Yeah, we're unaware of them too. And we've sure heard from a lot of ones who are not thinking it's a good idea. A lot of us have worked together closely. We've worked with you. We've worked with a lot of these other organizations. All these organizations represent people and effort that have worked on elections, that have worked on issues, that work tirelessly to try and get America to a better place. And what we're hearing is a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, and a lot of concern, because they also feel like what we should be doing at this point is paint and polish, not construction on new ideas. We know what we have to do. We have to cut government size and spending, and we have to put forward a pro-growth tax bill. And the truth is, raising taxes on Americans is something that we saw polling just a few weeks ago, and we actually put it out again earlier today. 8 in 10 Americans believe this is not the right time to raise taxes. And so whether it's the individuals who work with those groups or those groups themselves, we have yet to hear of any who would support this idea, would be surprised to hear that there were any, and would have some serious questions if any of them did.
Last question, Brent Gardner. AFP gets very, very loud, very, very fast, as I do. The message is take this idea off the table because this is Dick Darman 2.0, right? This is people who can remember back to 1990 know what happened to George H.W. Bush. He raised taxes after he said, read my lips, no new taxes. That's the equivalent of what Donald Trump said in the last campaign. And every Republican, no one ran on raising taxes. Am I correct?
That is correct. And we should have learned that lesson. It's one that Republicans have known for a long time. And so actually, I know Grover Norquist, actually, from Americans for Tax Reform, just tweeted something similar to that the other day. Look, it's a lesson Republicans learned long ago. It's one we would do well to quickly remember, to move past this, and to get back to focusing on the kind of bill that Americans want, that will make America better and that leads to growth in this country.
Americans for Prosperity will be leading the way, and I will be amplifying their messaging. Brent, good to see you. Even though you're a Bills fan, you're still welcome here anytime. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt.